Americans are used to thinking of climate change as being somewhere else. Flooding in Asia, drought in Africa, but it's here. What does this mean for American security? We'll talk about that next on Global Perspectives.
This program is made possible, in part, by funding from the UCF Global Perspectives Office, the Global Connections Foundation, and the India Center at UCF.
This is Global Perspectives with Pulitzer Prize-winning commentator John Bercia.
Welcome to Global Perspectives. What, if anything, will settle the climate change debate? The vast majority of scientists agree temperatures are rising, and humans are a causal factor. Arctic ice is melting faster than predicted, and parts of Asia have experienced record floods. Drought reduced crops in the American heartland this past summer. Our guest today, Andrew Holland, is a senior fellow for energy and climate at the American Security Project. He is an expert on why climate change is not just about other people anymore. Thanks for joining us today, Mr. Holland.
John, good to be with you.
Tell us about the climate change debate. What are the two sides in simple terms?
It's a good question because, unfortunately, it is a debate. We should start with the facts. The facts are these. The globe is warming. Climate is going up. We've seen about 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit in warming in the 20th century, and it's accelerating. Every decade of the last four has been the warmest on record. So the 2010s were warmer than 2000s were warmer than the 90s, were warmer than the 80s, were warmer than the 70s. These are the facts. They are indisputable. And the theory that man-made carbon dioxide emissions are causing that is virtually indisputable among scientists. So we have to start by looking at the facts. Now, there's a debate, and you know, that gets into politics.
With these facts as a base, what is the recommendation of your organization as far as what we ought to do or what we ought to think about doing?
Well, the American Security Project is a small nonprofit think tank based in Washington, D.C. that looks at America's long-term national security. And one of the issues that we look at in terms of national security is the changing climate and how we use our energy. Both of those are interrelated, two sides of the same coin. We need to think about this. We need to plan for the future. We need to have prudent, foresighted policies. You know, unfortunately, and we can go into this further, unfortunately it's not just about passing a bill and then washing our hands. This is about thinking for the long term, looking at what's happening to the country already, what's happening to the world, how that affects national security, how that affects homeland security, and then thinking about where we go from here and how can we adapt to this and mitigate some of those effects.
When you talk about security, it obviously can have different interpretations, but there is a serious national security and military component to this climate change discussion. Tell us about that.
That's right. The Pentagon is looking very closely at this. In the most recent quadrennial defense review, the four-year review of America's military posture, the Pentagon said that climate change presents real and present dangers to international stability and security. Now, what that means is that the U.S. is a globally deployed force, of course, and we have interests around the world. So when you look around the world and you think about stability, climate change is what the Pentagon terms as an accelerant of instability. We don't think that you'll ever be able to say climate change caused this conflict, but at the same time, climate change is causing water insecurity, is causing food insecurity, causing migration, causing new disease patterns, all these sorts of things. So it's causing a change in the underlying stability, and that can lead to conflict. So that's why the Pentagon is interested. That's why they're worried that this will lead to new deployments around the world. This will be, they'll have to do more disaster response, you know, responding to more storms, responding to to famine relief from droughts and stuff like that. But we have to think about this too. There's a temptation that this is just about all these unstable areas of the world, Africa. It's always a basket case, and just climate change is another thing on top of that. But we've seen this year especially that this is not just about the rest of the world. It's hitting the United States as well.
It all seems so difficult to get your hands around and uncertain in the ways it will unfold. So how do you plan for something that depends on extreme weather that we may not be able to predict?
That's right, and that's really one of the challenges here. It really is about uncertainty. One of the main findings of the scientists is actually not that we can predict exactly where it's going to go, but we can predict a range of where the temperatures are going to go. And within that, then you start having to think about the variabilities. What we're seeing is not so much just a increase in temperature, but an increase in uncertainty and variability, especially of extreme events. So when you start thinking about things like droughts, things like extreme rainstorms, the term derecho wasn't in our consciousness on the East Coast until the storm just before the 4th of July this summer. These are new things, and it's really very difficult to plan for. So when we start planning, we have to think, first of all, we have to think that when we build stuff, we build our infrastructure, our homes, our roads, power plants, all that sort of stuff. We have to think not just for the climate conditions of the 20th century, but we have to think what it will be like in the 21st century. So that means building in resilience, building in redundancy. It also means, not thinking about it like an insurance planner. It means avoiding risk where possible. It means sometimes that you don't build on those barrier islands. You don't build, multi-million-dollar houses on barrier islands unless, you're willing to bear the risk. So many people often say, oh, the United States, we're a wealthy country. We don't have to worry about climate change. We can just, we'll be able to pay for it. But it's the very fact that we are a wealthy country means that we have so much more at risk. We have all this infrastructure that we've built that's already at risk. We have all of this, again, multi-million-dollar homes on the water at risk. These things will be net losses if, the next storm comes through, or rising seawaters, or, any number of these sorts of things.
You were talking about how the message is being delivered here because some of these developments are starting to be seen in the United States. Give us a few examples of the most significant ones.
Well, I mean, the easiest one and most recent one this summer is the drought. At one point in this summer, more than 60% of the country was in moderate to severe to extreme drought conditions. And just think about that. This is a large country, and to think that 60% at one time was in moderate to severe drought. And at the wrong time, too. It came right as the corn crop was pollinating itself. So what that means is that our corn crop is expected to be, I think, 20–25%. Still, the harvest will be still coming in, but 20–25% lower than what it was expected to be. And that has implications for, obviously for farmers, for consumers as well in food prices, for ranchers and chicken farmers, pork producers, all of these people in increased feed prices. And then finally, it has implications for the whole world because the U.S. is the #1 exporter of grains and food, and what our market looks like determines what the world price of food is. So, we're already seeing the price of food going up. We're already seeing around the world, and this affects food importing countries like across the Middle East, China, South Korea, all are going to face rising prices for their food.
So you've got rising prices, you've got shrinking product,
That's right.
and it's not a good situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then if this continues over time, there's been speculation that we could literally see the heartland move north.
There has been speculation of that, and it's interesting too. It was for a long time, a lot of people said, oh, Canada and Russia were the two countries that stood to be the winners from climate change. But actually, we've seen this summer that it's this summer and then actually 2 summers ago, it's not necessarily the case. Canada has seen the same drought we've seen. Just because it's warmer up there doesn't mean that they're getting the amount of rain they need. So it doesn't. You have longer growing seasons, yes, but you also have the more variability in weather patterns. So you have less predictability, less ability to see it. So yeah, you could see the cropland move north, but you could also see just kind of a move towards less availability for cropland, period, in the entire North American continent. Canada is seeing the Canadian Rockies saw much of the same fire season that we saw in our Rockies. So this is a problem and an issue that really doesn't see national borders. And I think we're getting to the place now where we're realizing there's actually no winners.
How do we resolve it if we can't get past the debate? Because the debate seems to be one of those where it's endless back and forth. Yeah,
the political debate has been poisonous. I come out of Republican politics, actually. I was a legislative aide in the Senate for a Republican senator doing environmental policy and energy policy until 2008. And, at the time, there was, some ability to compromise, some ability to look at this from a solutions-oriented sort of place. And part of that was because it wasn't at the top of everybody's political mind. And I think, unfortunately, because one party and one president took it on, the president took it on as a big issue that he was going to address, that polarized the other side. The too many Republicans said, well, I oppose the president, so therefore he must be wrong on climate change. And that's unfortunate, because what I think the debate should be is more about, well, I oppose the president's policies on climate change, and this is my idea for solving it. This is what we need to do to solve it. This is a more, if you're a Republican, this is a more market-oriented way of solving it, or this is a way to do it without spending government money. And there are options for that. Things like, range from carbon tax to technology development, stuff like that. But that's not the debate we're having, unfortunately. That's in a fantasy world that some of us in the climate policy debate live in. There'd be a consensus on the science. We would just actually listen to what scientists have to say and take that advice and move to a solutions-oriented debate. And there are, there's no easy solutions. This is not something where we can just, snap your fingers, pass a bill, and wash your hands of it. It's never going to be done. Candidate Romney is right when he says, it's not national warming, it is global warming. But that means you have to actually engage with the rest of the world on this. You have to engage with the Chinese, the Indians, the South Africans, the least developed countries all over the world. You have to figure out resolutions for this. So, I think it's a problem that we're not debating these sorts of things right now, and I think we have to get back to that.
Do you have the sense that young people in particular are developing more of an interest in this than those of other ages, and as that generation gets older, there might be a more productive debate on this topic? And on the other hand, do we have time?
That's right.
To wait?
That's right. And that's the problem, is that, yeah, maybe we're moving towards a generational place where we can debate this in that way. But as we're waiting for the generations to move on, scientists say we'll run out of time. So, if you want to keep, it's globally agreed, it's a 2 degrees Celsius limit, about 3.5 degrees Fahrenheit is the limit of what you can get to in terms of safe warming. But the implications for that is that we need to basically come to a global deal within the next 3 to 5 years. And then we need to have emissions going downward within the next 10 years. That's a tough pull to be able to do that. So yeah, you may be running out of time. You know, where we go from there, I don't know. You know, the next generation does seem to be more engaged on it. But like everybody, you know, the problem is that there's more current issues. You know, coming out of college, you need a job. And you know, you see plenty of that cohort is still looking for work. You know, there's always more pressing political issues, and it's a real challenge to a policymaker to be able to think long term instead of be able to think 2 years, 4 years, even 6 years. This is something they have to think on a decades-long time cycle, and that's you know, not something the American political system, or really any political system, is set up to deal with. Very difficult.
And given all of these difficulties, how does your organization hope to move the debate along?
It's a good question. You know, ASP, we are, as I said, a security organization. We're not here to tell you whether to do cap and trade or carbon tax or, you know, border adjustments or any number of policy details. We're here to say that, look, this is a national security issue that demands that the U.S. leads. The U.S. is, you know, an indispensable nation. You know, without American leadership, the rest of the world is never going to come along with this. You know, the Europeans are trying to lead on it, but you know, they're having their own problems with it. So we need American leadership, and you know, we need to go forward and think about it in kind of a risk management, security-oriented way. And that's kind of where we come down on this, is that, you know, we need to talk about solutions. We need to talk about nonpartisan, bipartisan solutions. That's what we come at. You know, we just want it to have a debate as opposed to have whatever sort of argument that we're having right now.
Have we made progress in any part of it?
There's elements of the government, the U.S. government, that are taking very proactive steps on climate change, and there are, you know, at the local level, you're seeing a lot of smart planning going forward for, you know, a changing climate. You're seeing everything from New York with its their plan for extreme storms, which went into effect last year with the hurricane. You're seeing places like New Orleans much better prepared to weather an extreme event. So I think there's a lot of stuff going on under the radar screen, but we're at the top level, at the political level. It's difficult to see things. You know, within some of the agencies, Department of Homeland Security, the FEMA. You know, there's a lot of good planning and good ideas going on, but at the political scale, where the real leadership is difficult to find some consensus.
Well, let's look at the energy aspects of this, because the two are inextricably linked. Tell us what's happening on that front.
The U.S. is really seeing a sea change right now in where we get our energy from. You know, until just last year, we had gotten our electricity almost 50% from coal. Now, coal is the dirtiest of the fossil fuels. It's got the most carbon emissions as well as the most other emissions, mercury, sulfur, things like that. But what's happened is that the revolution in shale gas, fracking and hydrofracturing and horizontal drilling technology have really opened up all of this new terrain in the United States to natural gas. We've seen the price of natural gas plummet to all-time lows. And what's happening is that The free market says that, well, we're going to do electricity from natural gas instead of coal. So the United States is actually reducing its carbon emissions quite rapidly through these free market principles right now. And it's a changeover from coal to natural gas. Now, of course, you hear some people saying, war on coal, that the Obama administration has declared war on coal. It's not actually the truth. The truth is that the free market is determining that it's a war on coal. The other side of the energy is in our transportation system, cars. We're seeing a major change towards more efficient cars. Part of that is new fuel economy standards that have gone into place that'll bring cars up to 55 miles per gallon on average by 2025. But part of that is also market reality. The price of gas has gone up. It hovers around $4 a gallon, and so long as that gas price stays high, it makes a lot more sense to buy a car that gets 30 miles to gallon, whether it's a Prius or whether it's a BMW, than it does to buy a Hummer or something like that. So we're seeing this change.
Does the energy connection help people understand the broader debate, or is that still a difficult sell?
It's a difficult thing. I think too often in the United States we think of energy as the plug in the wall. We're used to it always being there. It's cheap, it's available, it's always on. So we're not used to thinking of it as something that you get from the dirty coal power plant, that's 20 miles away. We're not thinking about it that way. We're not thinking about it, and I think as we're changing over to people put solar panels on their roofs, that's an interesting way to start thinking about you as developing your own energy. Too often when candidates talk about energy, it's only gas prices. What are you going to do about gas prices? That's important. You have to have real solutions to that. But it's about energy all through the range.
How do you maintain your optimism in this very complicated, challenging environment?
I look at the technology that's coming down the pike. I mentioned solar. Solar panel prices have gone down very fast. You talk about wind power. You've seen just an unbelievable amount of wind put up around the country, and at prices that are becoming competitive. You're seeing, and then you talk about these next generation fuel sources. Things like advanced biofuels that don't use corn for ethanol and are drop-in replacements for gasoline, for diesel fuel. These sorts of things that we can do without competing with gas or competing with food prices. And then, looking even further beyond than that, there's some really interesting advances being made in things like nuclear fusion, which is clean nuclear energy, so always on, but without the waste energy. There's big scientific advances being made in that. You're seeing, all these sorts of new technologies bubbling up, and there's a real demand for it. I think that's the reason for optimism. Government can help to produce those scientific developments with R&D, with thinking for the future, research and development, science, that sort of stuff. And then kind of getting out of the way and let the scientists find solutions.
Great. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for joining us today, Mr. Holland.
Great. Thank you, John.
And thank you for the Global Perspective Show. I'm John Bercia. We'll see you next time.
This program is made possible, in part, by funding from the UCF Global Perspectives Office, the Global Connections Foundation, and the India Center at UCF.